I'm going to take you back on a timeline of something. A long time ago, when I was a child, guys, you know, not once did I ever go to the, remember, you know, going to the hospital for a cold or virus or any of that stuff. I never did. Right? You catch a cold and the remedy was underneath, you know, the kitchen sink or grandma's kitchen sink or something. Right? But over time, hospitals, they became quite lucrative. Being a doctor a long time ago was not about wealth. It was about the oath they took. Right? They took an oath. They took an oath to help people. And so they were primarily concerned about helping people. They were. They went through many stages where they had snake oil salesmen that used to sell things. And you guys know how that worked. But doctors were interested in helping people. And you had your local doctors who would, you know, they had their remedies. And they would often prescribe these natural remedies to guide people into staying healthy because, you know, medicine was not one of those things that you looked at that would, you know, inspire richness and all this and the other, but people actually wanted to get into the medical field to help. Over time, a dependency began. A dependency. And as that dependency grew, as people began to make remedies, it was stuck in the retail markets and people could go and pick up their own remedies for things, right? Thus was born these pharmaceutical companies who would often, through chemistry, come up with a solution to problems. And it began with innocence, right? Say, for example, smallpox, things like that. It began with a lot of people pouring in they didn't listen. When they did R&D on these things, they weren't paid for that. They took a lot of their time to make these new discoveries that would help humanity. And of course, being human beings, there's a bit of pride in there, but they looked at their jobs as something critical for people. Doctors did. Well, as time went on and things were commercialized and more people began to depend upon pills, pharma became quite big. That happened by demand of the people. And when it grew, so did some of these strange diseases, right? Until we come to this day now. In this day and age, if a child sneezes, these younger parents say, let's go to the doctor. Let's go get you looked at. And indeed, if you don't, it's called child neglect, which can carry a pretty healthy penalty. It's almost like a mandate that if you suspect that your child is sick, you have a duty and a responsibility to take it to the hospital. That's what it seems like. Then, of course, they could issue pills. Then we had the Ritalin issue that came out, right, with the children and all sorts of things. Now, what do you have? You have a lot of people who have prescribed medications. Lots of people. Is there anything wrong with that? No, not really. No, it isn't. It isn't. Our dependency upon it, I would give a challenge to, especially for those of the faith. Not that you can't take that stuff, right? But that you understand it's not your fix. That the Lord has empowered these doctors and whoever else may work on you, and because of you, because you're in this land. And the Lord sends his blessings through men in a lot of ways. But he's put some people in position that have really helped other people in critical times. Through medicine, many people are fixed or they hang on. But my point is, a generation has come that is reliant upon medicine for correction. Now, many of us have been sick and we've been injured. And during the height of those injuries or sickness, how many times did you pray that the Lord just take you home because the pain was too great? And how many times did you have the thought, man, if I didn't have this pain, if I didn't have this condition, if this weren't wrong with me, that would really change. Many people are like that in this generation, right? We have to deal with health issues. Why? Because everything is manufactured. And we don't know what we're putting into our bodies, and certainly it has compromised our immune system. I'm one of those people who believe in that scripture, you'll know a tree by its fruit. So by what the results of something is and what it ultimately leads to gives us what it was all about. And all this technology and all this R&D, research and development, led to a very addicted generation. And when you're in pain, I can tell you something. You don't care what other people think. You care about getting relief, correct? If you broke your leg, you know what the pain of a broken leg is, and you would love to get it fixed. And a lot of people do a lot to get fixed. Right now, some people are working very hard just to pay medical bills so they can be seen again. It is right there at the top of a person's list. Hospitals are, medications are, procedures are, all these different things. Because they have come to realize you go out and make all the money you want, but if your health is bad, you can't enjoy that money. You'll, in turn lose it all through medical spending. A lot of people have grown weary of that. And then you have a lot of people who can't afford medical care, and so they self-medicate. That has led to one of the highest addiction rates in the world right here in America. Lots of people are addicted, and they don't purposely start out this way. Take a person from the VA, right, who's getting Social Security or something like that. They have an accident. Something goes wrong. Of course, they're not going to turn down medicine that helps you ease the pain. And they did not count on the addiction factor. Most of the folks who take those strong pills, they did not wake up one day and say, I think I'm going to go get addicted to Percocets. That's not what they did. It slowly formed. Then one day they drew back and they found out, oops, I feel awful without this. And indeed, they can't function without it. And then those same individuals have had moments and their soul cried out to the Lord, please break this addiction. Please break this addiction. Please get me back to where I was before I even started taking these pills. I told you guys about my accident. And I woke up in a military hospital with a morphine drip, and I had had that drip for a little over a week. And that was just a week. Well, after I got up, I said, no more of that. They said, you can't do that. Well, why not? Why can't I do that? They said, you can't do that. It's dangerous. We have to wean you off of it. I said, what are you talking about? I was out for a long time. I had no idea that I was in the hospital. I was in there for a long time before I woke up, or before they started that morphine drip the last week of that stay, and then I woke up. But I was out for a time, so I didn't know what was going on. All I knew was I woke up and I had a morphine drip, right? But I thought I was okay enough to handle it, and I said, no more of this. And so with sheer will, they warned me too of the consequences. Naturally, I didn't believe them. The next day, I'm going to tell you something. That was horrible. The day after that was horrible. In fact, I'll tell you, that was most miserable. 4 or 5 days I had in my life, it was that feeling that this, whatever was going on in my body, it was new, it was awful, it was weird. And that's because they slowly wean people off those drips. Not all at once when you've been on it for so long. Because your body changes that quick. And you will have withdrawal symptoms when your body's chemistry is totally out of whack. And that's awful. Right? But I just made up my mind. I said I'm not doing it. But I know that the average person can't do that. They're not going to do that. That's very uncomfortable, which is why most people can point at another person and say, you're addicted. You just need to stop. And I know better. Everybody just does not have that willpower or is stupid enough to do what I did. Nevertheless, we have a lot of people addicted to a lot of things. That led to social upheavals. It also led to people being able to get their hands on these things, and then people out there replicating them, so on and so forth, until you have a country that's addicted to pharma. And they went off. A lot of people went off. A lot of you guys, some of you guys may have started out with pain, and you may take a pain medication, and you don't want to take it. But if you don't take it, you can't even function. That's understandable. Totally understandable. So we get to this day, right here, the day we're in. We went from not having medication to a day where a lot of people have to have it. If they don't have it, they'll die. They'll croak over. The human body is altered since a long time ago. And when I was young, nobody talked about pills. There was no talk about pills and all this stuff going around, right? Not like that. So we get to this day when they start chopping people off of these medications, and what do they go to? Anybody want to know? Heroin. It's a problem in this country. Heroin was a problem a while ago, but it's more of a problem now. More now than ever. You have some weird things out there, just like meth. All these people addicted to meth. A lot of people have prayed to be released from that stuff. And people are praying right now to be released from it. They don't like it, but they know what happens when they can't have it. It's awful. Right? Well, something else is taking place. Now, keep in mind, it is society. It is demand. It's a changing world that led up to this high addiction crisis that we have. Opioids all over the place. The doctors said, no, this is not, you won't get addicted to it. It's not habit forming. And now we know the opposite, right? And a lot of people's lives are destroyed by this stuff. They really are. What would happen if they came out with something where there would be no withdrawal symptoms, nor would there be an addiction as soon as you turn a switch? What do you think would happen to a lot of people who struggle with chronic pain to know that something like that was available? That they could flip a switch and there's no addiction. What do you think? Who do you think would deny such a thing? And if it were the size of a quarter, and it didn't take a big medical team to implement nor operate, what do you think that would be worth to the average individual in this country and abroad who is addicted to something like heroin, who is addicted to methamphetamines? What do you think that would be worth to a person to have their youthful mind back? Listen, no withdrawal symptoms, none. No cravings, none. Can you imagine the people who would get that? Can you imagine? Now listen to me close. You do realize that's already done. You do realize that the candidacy during the development of this was around 800,000 people plus. You do realize it just did not come out. But it's been deemed successful. All tests successful. No more things into the body. Not by altering the body. No. Not by that. An addiction is nothing more than a chemical signal to the rest of your body that dopamine is missing. Normally, your body releases dopamine, which is a feel-good chemical set in the body that your body puts off during high states of pain, so on and so forth, right? Well, what if this thing could actually cause the body to release it in perfect amounts that you would not need it all the time, but as soon as your neurons start firing in a certain sequence, it kicks off, stopping any addiction instantly. And all the bad chemistry and feelings that go with it. Wouldn't that be something? Can you imagine something like that, how that hardly anybody would say no? And what if you knew of a device that within 30 seconds could end your chronic pain? Yes, I said end it. How many people do you think would get that one? So we have addiction and chronic pain gone. Nobody has to deal with that again. How many people do you know that would get their hands on something like that? I bet you know a lot. I bet you know folks right now that if that were in your hands and you saw it work on somebody else, it would deeply touch you to know that they're back to normal. Wouldn't it? When that person who's a quadriplegic gets up from that stationary chair, like Hawkins, if all of his mobility was reestablished and he felt no pain in therapy or recovery, how many people would go for something like that, where you no longer took a pill, no more addiction to anything like that? What do you think would happen to the world? It would change drastically. That's what would happen. It would alter. Forever it would be different. And then people would not realize the other part of it. Not the consequence of utilizing such a thing, but the consequence of compromise. It'd be so many people running toward that. Can you all imagine that? And what if I were to tell you that this same technology, so to speak, can take an Alzheimer's person or somebody with dementia and cause them to be normal within about 30 seconds? Now, wouldn't that be different? How many people do you know would go for that? I'll tell you right now, there are a lot of people, Christian and otherwise, who would say, I want that. See, because here's the issue. They're already taking medications for high blood pressure, sugar, and all these things. For pain, for chronic pain, they're already taking something. So something came out where they would never have to take a pill again. They would get it. And we're not talking hypotheticals, nor are we talking about something that's a year in the future. No. We're talking about something that's fully been approved. We're talking about something other companies are going to utilize to develop even more intimate technology. Neuralink is by Elon Musk, right? It is a non-invasive chipset that goes in the skull. And when they implant it in the brain doesn't even bleed. Because the wires are so small. And it has the ability to simulate neurological firing of many different sequences to normalize any condition in the body. But that's not what I'm talking about. How surprising is that? See, if Neuralink, if that were the deal, we'd be pretty safe because that's not going to come out until another year and a half. They still have a lot of approval on that to go. They're still putting together team members, permanent team members, to really get this thing going forward. They're still in R&D phase, phases in a lot of it. They have no real human trials yet. They've only had pig trials, and, little trials. It'd be all right if that were the deal, because that would take a while, but that's not what we're discussing. I can assure you that Neuralink will be built atop the architecture that's already in place. See, back in the 70s, when they started working with microprocessors, they found out quite a few techniques of communication with the brain. Now they have mapped the entire language of the human mind. The only thing that cannot be mapped is your spirit. Everything else has physical. All the communication that goes on between what's really you and the body. All the sophistication of that. They can now see it, but they can't do anything about it. But as far as the body communicating with the organs, with the muscles, they've got that fully mapped. Fully mapped. Can you imagine? Now, what about the ethical questions about this? Would it be bad? The truth is, no, it would not be bad. It wouldn't be bad. But the outcome would be horrible. Do you know why? Because a person would subconsciously think they would have the answer. But it would be highly ignored because of, what it restores within a person. The rich, the uber rich would have it, thus restoring themselves back to a youthful age, doing twice as much as what they're doing now. But the average consumer would also have it. How many people would say no? No, I want to suffer. You sure you don't want this little device? It's only going to be like $20. You sure you don't want it? No, I'd rather, suffer and go back and forth to the doctor. They used, at a few dentists' office with just about every procedure, they utilized this technology. And the person was awake and could see everything and could give responses to how something felt in their mouth while they were having, work done in the mouth. From root canals and everything else, no medication. The person wasn't jerking. The person wasn't, turning red or turning blue. Not that they weren't stressed. All the receptors turned totally off. Totally compliant with technology. No pain, no discomfort whatsoever. Nothing. And those addicted people, 5 seconds, no addiction. works on cigarettes too, which is one of the hardest. I believe that the addiction strength of cigarettes is 2 times higher than heroin. 2 or 3 times higher. One of those numbers. Folks, can you imagine your families? Can you imagine those who have families and people have real issues in those families? They're not going to say no. In fact, at that point, it becomes a gift to somebody else. What about convenience? What about what it takes to get it? I'll tell you right now, a person that works at a grocery store can install it. Think about that. So that means a person can walk around right now, and they are walking around right now, with a piece of technology in them, listen to me, in them that assures they'll not have any of these problems other people have. From quadriplegics to those who have their legs amputated, to folks who lose absolute and total mobility, all those things being restored. And one of the biggest ones, it can even induce a cancer cell to finally turn off. Isn't that something? That means no more growth of cancer. No more. What they had to breach and what they had to communicate with were neurological systems within the body. Because the brain language is mapped. They have a good idea. So they had a starting point. And with the advent of AI, this is now distributable. It will be distributed. It's going to go out to a lot of people within weeks. Not months, not years. Can you all imagine? Can you see now? And again, we're not talking hypotheticals. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about very real technology. How long does it take to put in somebody's head? 45 minutes. How long does it take to put one in somebody's hand? 15 minutes. Those are the 2 places of neurological reception, the highest points of neuroreception. Isn't that something? We have a problem, wouldn't you say? Now, I'm going to break down this other portion right after the break. It's about to get interesting. Very interesting.